Hi, podcast family. This is Jeff Kay. Welcome back from Echoes Across Time. Today we have a very special guest, Don Gleason. Don is a military veteran, entrepreneur who helps people find their career that energizes them and fulfills them. The last part is where Don will focus on today. So, Don, please, we're all anxious to hear what to do.
Okay.
Lessons learned.
Well, it'll be my lessons learned, right? And everybody has to incorporate those into their life the best that they can, based upon personality. And I appreciate what you said in the very beginning, right? You're a high D in the DISC personality. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. And I'm an SC. I'm a peacemaker.
Well, let's back up.
Sure.
For people who don't know DISC, explain
Okay.
to them what the various attributes of DISC are.
Sure. You got the D, I, the S, and the C. D's are dominant, decisive. They like to be in charge. They're focused on results. I's are inspiring. They love to talk, right? They love to talk sometimes before they think. They might create to-do lists, but they don't follow to-do lists. They're very random people. S's are steady, stable. They're the heartbeat of most organizations, but they tend to resist conflict. They do not like change. They're slow to change, and they tend to stay in relationships way too long. They tend not to not upset the apple cart. And the C is compliant, very analytical. They love the details. They love following a process, and they are usually right. They create that to-do list and they follow it religiously. And if they ever do something off that to-do list, they put it back on the to-do list to cross it off, because it's just how they measure their success, right? And so it's a good way that Dr. William Marston at Harvard in the 1930s found, based upon hundreds of years of research, when he went back, that to classify people's personalities. Goes all the way back into 400 BC. So jumping forward, right? I'm an SC, I'm a combination, but I'm a peacemaker. And it so resonated when I first heard that, because every time I'm in a conversation and it starts to get into a conflict, two people start arguing, I'm trying to pull them apart and bring peace into the conversation. I'm not willing to have that conflict. Sometimes conflict is needed, though. And that's probably one of the lessons that we need to learn from what I'm going to talk today. Sometimes conflict is needed, and sometimes you have to make a quick decision. There is no perfect leadership style. You can lead from any one of them. A lot of people think that you have to be a D to be a leader, but there's only 3% of the population that's a D, so that's not true. So anyway, that's the summary of DISC. And there's other ones. Myers-Briggs looks at some other aspects. Love languages looks at some other aspects. Strengths finders. So you should not just rely on one, though I happen to be a consultant in the DISC. That's my primary one. But can I jump in the story?
Go for it.
Yeah, so what I wanted to share is Jeff put on one of the Facebook sites looking for guests for inspiring stories. What can you learn from life? And I really learned an important lesson in the last couple of years. 3 years ago, a partner and I started a nonprofit. And we weren't very far in. We were probably less than a year in. And I knew right away that this probably wasn't going to mesh. We were different personalities. We weren't communicating. We were in this for different purposes. There's a lot of different things there. And we tried to recognize those differences. Person's a DI, I'm an SC. So we spent time trying to figure out and understand each other's personalities and how to communicate with each other.
Sounds like a marriage.
Exactly, right? And that's probably what most marriages almost don't do, is they see a difference and they just get frustrated and they start separating. If that person doesn't love me, I don't love them. They're not communicating with me, I'm not going to communicate with them.
Oh, so maybe before people get married, that they should actually take a DISC assessment to see if they're actually compatible.
Oh, 100% agree. Yeah. and there's a lesson right there, right? My partner and I, before we agreed to move forward, we should have done the DISC assessment, and we should have recognized each other's styles and thought through, how are we going to work together? How do we work through this? And what roles are each of us going to have? Because we're different. And I got caught at the 2-year point. I had a consultant and I were talking one day, and he says, you're trying to force him to be something he's not.
Yeah, but since everybody is something with respect to DISC, either you're a D, an I, an S, a C, or some combination thereof. There's multiple ways to communicate. So people have to adapt to those styles.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. And he was trying to give me more detail, which is what I was looking for as a C. I was trying to give him less detail, which is what he wants as a D. As we went into meetings, being the C, I'm a planner. What's their background? What's our pitch? What are they interested in? And sometimes the other flip side of that conversation was, let's just see what happens. Right? They're not into planning. So,
well, that's me. I'm a high D.
Yeah, but it created a natural conflict between the two of us as we were trying to walk into situations. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
you probably felt that with other people you worked with. Right?
Oh, sure. I mean, as a previous international project manager, yes, I had to put together plans, but oftentimes I just wing it.
Yeah.
I'm best when I wing it. Kind of like what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I just got done reading Michael Hyatt's book, The Vision-Driven Leader. And he says, without a vision, most organizations fail. Most relationships fail. You got to have a vision of where you're trying. And that was probably one of those things that we didn't have in our business relationship is, what's this end point that we're trying to get to? How many cohorts of this? What are the services? So we kept coming up with all kinds of ideas that were outside. And that's okay to come up with them. But you have the vision as a filter of what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And without the vision, we didn't have the filter. So that created more animosity. Because when we said, no, I don't like that idea, and that happened on both ways, right? I had thought about doing a podcast and interviewing a lot of the different people that we were working with to build a relationship with them. And that was poo-pooed. That was disapproved. And then somebody came up with a military transition schedule. And I had said, I don't see the value of that. And another partner and I said, no. So that created conflict because we didn't have a vision, a filter to what we're going to do. What's the services we provide? And where do we want to be in 3 to 5 years? And does that help us get there? And both of us had different opinions on that. So again, that's that conflict piece, right?
So what's the difference between, say, a mission statement versus a vision statement?
So a lot of people get those confused, and I've been trying to work through that myself. Vision is that 3 to 5 years out. It's where you want the organization to be. The mission statement is more about what you do. And what are you doing today?
How does one think 3 to 5 years out? I mean,
it's visionary. It's imagination, right? But if you don't have something in your mind, you're not going to get there. Think about when you're in high school and you were getting ready to go to college.
God forbid. Okay.
But you're thinking about going to college. Did you? I think a lot of people jump into college and just say, "Oh, business sounds interesting. I'm going to go," or engineering sounds interesting, right? I'm good at math. I'll go to engineering. But when it gets tough, so I was a civil environmental engineer, and a lot of people came in and left after the first semester and said, "You guys work too hard." I said, "Yeah, but what's your purpose? What is it you want in life? What is this degree going to help you do?" And they're like, "I just want a job. I just want pay. I just want to live." And they didn't have a vision of what they wanted to do. In the 5th grade, I kind of caught my purpose, my vision, which was to help clean America's waters. On the first Earth Day in 1970, April of 1970, I saw what I wanted to do in life. Now, I'm probably pretty unique being that early, but it stayed with me and drove me. So when I got into that tough spot of learning all these equations and doing the homework in engineering, I knew it was a means to an end. And I think that's the value of a vision in an organization. If you can imagine it and put it out that way, then when you go through the daily struggles, and you will, right? There's no path from here to there that's straight up. It's up and down, it's a roundabout, it hits a river, it hits a lake, it hits an ocean, it hits huge mountains. Just as a visual picture, you will hit things that you just don't know how you're going to get through. But having that vision of where you're trying to get to helps you get through that. Otherwise, you'll quit. And I hate to say it, without that vision in my nonprofit, when things got tough, I wasn't willing to stick it out because I couldn't see that long-term place.
So with that being said, so what is your
here's the symptoms.
statement?
Oh, for me. So right now, my vision statement is to so since I just left the nonprofit, I've been reworking it. So it's a great question, but it's along the line of helping people find the career that inspires and that energizes them in the life that inspires them. That's my vision. Or that's probably my mission statement. My vision statement is to, and everybody always talks about be the preemptive number one person in the workspace. And I don't know that y'all have to be there, especially not 3 to 5 years from now. But my vision statement is to become well known in 3 to 5 years of helping people, having served about 200 people in the next 3 to 5 years. Get that job that inspires them, that energizes them in the life that inspires them. Because I think they go together. If you can find the career that you're inspired in, that you really enjoy, that you're energized by, you just continually work in it, but and it's challenging, but you love it. At the end of the day, you're going to be at the peak of your energy and you'll go home and you'll engage with your family. But if you're in that job that just drains you all day, you don't enjoy it. Every task you get just sucks a little bit more life out of you. You'll leave exhausted and you'll go home and you'll plop in front of the TV and you'll grab a beer or whatever. And you don't engage with your spouse, your kids, your friends, and you just exist. And that's no fun. That's not what we were here for.
So you keep mentioning the word job. So with that word in mind, do you mean job as in working for somebody, or does that also include entrepreneurs?
I kind of put job and career in this definition. A job is something you take to earn money, to get experience, to move on to something else. It's not in your passion. A career is something that you see yourself doing for a long term. It's, you can join a grocery store as a bagger with a vision that I want to be the store manager. This is my career. I think that's okay. But you can also join a grocery store as a bagger just to earn money to get through college so I can, get this degree to go do what I really want to do. So that's, I think, the difference between a job and a career. I think the job is a means to a career.
Now, it's funny when you mention college and people go to college to get a job, because the question that reminds me of is when somebody is 18, unlike yourself, you knew what to do at the age of
12, 10, some.
Most people don't know or don't have any idea.
Yep.
And I fall into that category of what they want to do. Hence, I studied everything. And even after studying everything, I still don't do anything that I studied.
Is that right?
Yeah. I'm way outside my box.
Now, does that mean it just transitioned to something different that you found? Because you may not have known in college what you truly wanted to do, but it was a means to get you there.
It didn't even transition.
No?
I put it together. What stuck with me was when my grandmother passed away at my feet when I was 7.
Okay.
And that being the case, I realized then, it didn't occur to me until much later in life, that I wanted to help people preserve their legacies
Hmm.
and their memories.
Uh,
And when I told my dad about that
Mhm.
after college, he's like, "Oh, sounds like a great idea. Go get a job." Well, it wasn't
Because
until
they didn't see that. He didn't see the same thing you saw, right?
no, no.
And they
But this
rarely
is
do.
but this is where life kind of gets interesting. After my parents passed, I was going through my grandfather's wallet. I found a picture of his mother, which kind of led me into the genealogy aspect of it. Only to find out from an epigenetic perspective, I was the only person on either side of the family who ever worked for somebody.
Is that right?
Yeah. So,
Family of entrepreneurs.
yeah. So it was something I was born to do. It was in my blood. It's no wonder I really dislike corporate America.
Mhm. And that's one thing I do with the clients I work with as a career transition coach is I take them back to their experiences. What was it that energized them? What moved them, right? I was working with a sergeant major one time, and I said, so we worked through it for about a half hour. And I said, so what was that piece, that best job you had? And he goes, oh, it was easy. I said, I was in DC and I got to be the point of contact for the US American basketball Olympic dream team to come to DC and talk to inner city youth. And I said, so what was it that about inspired you? And he goes, I could see the look on the kids' eyes that every one of these players came from an inner city, poor, single mom type of situation. Not everybody the same, but they were in that boat and they had not seen any hope to get out of it. But now they all had hope. And he said, I said, so why did that impact you so much? He said, because that's exactly what I came from. I was in Alabama and there was nothing in my future except drugs, alcohol, sex, crime, prison. That's where all my friends went. And I did not want that. I wanted out of that. And he joined the service and he became a sergeant major, an E9 in the Army, top enlisted rank. He succeeded really well, but he now wanted to help others do that same thing. And I could tell you story after story about that, but that's, I think we're here about my story, not theirs. So. I think the thing for me in my story is as I was going through that process, what finally got to the point, and I had had this a couple times in my career, where all of a sudden my conversations were wrapped up in that frustration. Thus, in the middle of the night, I would be dreaming and have nightmares, and I would wake up in a sweat and just mad as hell because my mind had taken off when I was sleeping into a whole different direction. And then it'd be 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get back to sleep because I was so, hyper, and my mind wouldn't shut down. And then I wasn't sleeping right, and that started impacting my day. If I wasn't sleeping right, I was irritable. I got tired early, and it started impacting my personal health.
Give me 1 second, would you?
Sure.
Sorry.
That's right. I think you have a choice at that point, right? You can either just turn it off and just exist, or you can make a change. And every time that happened to me, I decided I'm making a change. I'm not just going to accept this. I'm not going to stay in this situation. I had it when I was in a corporate job. What was nice in the military when it happened, you knew that a year from now or whatever, either that boss is going to leave or you're going to leave, right? So you can stand on your head for a year or so. But when you're in the corporate and you're thinking about 10, 20 years, it no longer becomes tenable to stay. So I had that conversation and said, it's time to go.
Well, when I was in corporate and I thought of management and I thought of the whole C-level suite and all that other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I realized it's like beachfront property.
In what way?
There's only one CEO,
True.
and if there is a house on the beach that you like, there's only one house on the beach. But yes, there are multiple houses on the beach,
Mhm.
just like there's multiple opportunities for being a sea level, et cetera.
Mhm.
But if you want one specific thing, there's only one house.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I often say this to people where, and I'm neither for or against multi-level marketing, but I find the concept very interesting because
Okay.
people almost say, "Oh, Jeff, I can't do that. It's a pyramid scheme." And I'm like,
Mhm.
really? I'm like, well, tell me about corporate America. You've got one CEO,
Mhm.
a VP, and the whole suite, and then it branches down into managers, and then it branches down into your employees. So technically, there's only one person who really makes serious money.
Depends how you define serious, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, from a golden parachute perspective.
Right. I think there's one thing that I was thinking about from this perspective is there only one significant other, one mate for each of us in this entire world? And if that's true, then how do we ever find that person, right? My wife and I, we met in 5th grade. She sat next to me. She copied my spelling. She'll tell you. It's the only way she got through spelling. She's a terrible
Oh,
speller. Yeah. So she would copy off. I guess I didn't cover up well on my paper. Yeah, which is funny because my person to my left was the teacher at her desk, and the person to the right was my future wife. But we had dated a bunch of other people, and then we finally came together our senior year. So did we grow into each other? And we've been married 41 years, or was that the perfect match? I tend to think that you start to grow into and get to know each other, develop a relationship. And I think it's the same with a job, right? A career. Let me say a career, because as an environmental engineer, there are many ways I could use that skill, right? I could be a design engineer. I could be a construction engineer. I could run a wastewater treatment plant. I could be a consultant. I could do a lot of different things in that arena that would help me get to my vision of cleaning up America's waters. So I don't know that there's just one. So I think, kind of going to your analogy, they may want to be the CEO, but they may not want to be. Not everybody wants to be the CEO. I never had that dream to be the CEO of a major company. I wanted to have impact with my clients and impact with the environment, right? And when I got out of the service in 2009, I had a lot of people who went for VP positions because they came out as colonels and they wanted to be a VP. I went in as a senior associate, 2 levels below a VP, probably making about the same amount of money, but I didn't have the title because the title wasn't important. It was the impact I was having. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, because it's funny, I was meeting with my business coach yesterday.
Okay.
And yes, I have a coach, as do
As do I.
or as
As we all should.
yeah,
Yeah.
because and I'm putting together my mission statement. And her feedback was, you're not thinking big enough. And her words were, if your dreams or vision or mission doesn't scare you,
Mhm.
then
Not big enough.
keep being creative and find something, because you want to get out of your comfort zone.
Well, here's that question. At what point in your life is good enough good enough? Right? If I make a coaching business that funds my needs and lets me do what I want to do, including having time for family and travel and stuff like that, is that good enough? Or do I need to grow a team of 10, 15, 100 people, make millions, if not $1 billion?
Depends what your vision is.
That's exactly right. Right? Depends what your vision is. That's why I think vision is so important. It drives that. Right? Am I going to try to speak 10 times every month or 2 times every month? Yep.
And who's going to be your audience? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that.
That's right.
I mean, are you going to develop a course to
Mhm.
are you going to be a coach, consultant? What services are you going to provide? I mean, there's a whole list of opportunities that you can do.
That's right.
So the question is, which of those do you want to do, or if you have the cycles, can you do them all?
That's right. I talked to one person and they basically wanted it all. And I said, you can't have it all, at least not right away. You can build into it, but you got to take steps. So I've got a vision to be able to create an on-demand course that runs through all the different aspects of career transition that people can access, maybe as a membership site. So
Sure.
they come in, they get released one a week, or we can work on how fast they want to go through them. But there'll be things to do in each one to develop. So it takes time. And then I want to have like a weekly call, a mastermind where people can call in and we can discuss things. And we'll get people online to put their opinion out. So we have a conversation. When we together, it's like Think and Grow Rich. When 2 minds come together, it's like a third mind because they feed off each other. And then my third part is one-on-one coaching at right audit points to make sure that people are moving forward in the program and they're taking steps. So it's going to have 3 phases, but notice that I'm not trading my time for money, using that on-demand course to get people through quickly, but I'll have key check-in points so that I can go travel.
Well,
I can sit on the beach in Miami, pull out my computer and run that mastermind, and then have a Mai Tai or a margarita.
And I see a lot of, and I see what you're doing is one, building synergy,
Mhm.
and you're creating a community
Right. Exactly.
with the same mindset, so people can collaborate, share ideas, and kind of being that participatory leaders, so to speak.
That's right. I've got about 5,600 people on LinkedIn. And it's funny when I go to a conference, how many people stop me, people I don't even know, and they'll stop me. I had one at this last conference 3 weeks ago. We weren't even connected on LinkedIn, but yet he somehow had connected to me. He must have been following me without being a friend. And he just stopped me and said, I love the videos you're putting out. I love what you're talking about. You really inspire me. And I said, I don't remember you commenting or sharing, or even liking. He goes, no, I don't do that. But I watch them. And how many people are watching me without engaging with me? So I'm having an influence, but I don't even know it. And sometimes you just got to press forward. That's probably another lesson learned as you grow is have your vision of where you're growing and your voice, and just keep pushing it and pushing it, pushing it. And not worrying if you get likes and comments and shares, because there are people out there that are watching, that you're inspiring.
That's kind of like me in my podcast. I think you or somebody asked me, well, Jeff, how many viewers do you have? How many subscribers do you have? And I'm like, to be honest, one, I just started about 6 or 8 weeks ago. And 2, that's really not important to me.
There you go.
For me, it's not about those numbers. It's about putting out the information and the lessons and the stories. So to be that conduit, so people can tell their inspirational stories or lessons learned or something and share it.
Yep. There you go.
So that's what my vision is for this podcast.
There you go. Yeah, I love that. Everybody's, and that's the thing with working with your coach, right? we as a coach can be critical of our clients if it's not big enough. You're not challenging yourself enough. But we got to sit back and listen and really understand what our client wants. And I love the wheel of life. And it has like 8 quadrants, like 8 pieces of the pie, pizza. And each one is a different one, right? It's professional, it's relationships, it's financial, it's spiritual, it's physical fitness, it's relationships. I mean, I double that one, but there's 8 different pieces. And then what you do is you rate yourself. How do I feel where I'm at now based upon where I want to be, right? And this last year, a couple of years ago, it was like relationships was a 6 for me. And it was, I wanted to be closer to my kids and my grandkids. I wanted to travel was one. I wanted to see a little bit more of America. I see a lot of Facebook videos of Utah. And there's so many beautiful spots out there. I want to go camping for a month and just explore Utah, right? So it's kind of like a bucket list, but it's things that I want to do to make my life fulfilling.
Well, I can put you in touch with somebody in Utah to put that bucket list together.
Yeah. And then there's that professional side where I still want to have an impact with people who I see are in positions in careers that don't energize them, and therefore their life is not fulfilled. And I want to have that impact. So I'm blending all those together. And it's not that I want to do everything. I want to do certain things that lead to my fulfillment. I've been on boards. I've been in volunteer organizations, and they didn't fulfill me. Because so many people on boards are there to get their name on their resume that they were on a board. And I couldn't get them to meetings. I couldn't get them to engage in things. And it becomes very frustrating. But yet they would complain that we weren't giving them enough information. It's like, we got to
ask.
Yeah, you're not asking, you're not engaging. So I think the end of my story as we come around is be paying attention to yourself. That self-awareness. If know what DISC or Myers-Briggs or strengths or love language you are, and how you engage and what the strengths and weaknesses are, right? My weakness was I stay in relationships way too long. And I let people bully me into staying into things. And I need to quicker make the decision. It was not easier at the 3-year point to say goodbye than it was at the end of the 1-year point when I started to say goodbye. And the next 2 years really just kind of became painful. And that final goodbye was even worse. So and it could be in a marriage too, it could be in a friendship relationship. When I meet somebody now and our personalities just don't mix, I have to engage. Do I want to spend the time to figure out how to engage with this person? We're just not in the same room. The gentleman who had BNI, Business Networking International, I can't think of his name, but he wrote a book called Who's in Your Room, I think it was. And he said, imagine Ivan, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember his last name.
That'll come to me.
Yeah.
And he says, imagine you're a one person. Well, you're in a room and there's one door to your room and the door is a one-way room. Who do you let into your room? What's the criteria you use? Because once you let them in, you can't let them out. I was like, ooh, that is so telling. And if you use that in starting a business, right? When you said in the beginning, which we should, like a marriage, right? If I see that we are different personalities and we can't see a vision of how we're going to communicate and get along, then why let them in my room? Why get married to them? You're just causing more problem. Why start a business with them? Why start a friendship with them? If you can't see a direction forward, then make that call up front. But you got to do some thinking up front. This was the thing that my wife and I came up with. So Don, you see, this is my wife, you see all the possibilities, but you don't see the pain. And that's what it was. 3 years ago, man, partner and I sat down, we talked for about an hour, said, yeah, this is a great idea. We really like this. We had been thinking about something like this. Let's do it. We did a beta test. The beta test was flying colors. Boom, we started. The week that COVID hit us and the government and everything shut down, we started our nonprofit. And we just pushed forward. And we saw the possibilities. And we loved the possibilities of what we were doing with the clients. But it just wasn't that way in terms of the relationship. So. We should have spent more time up front to make sure that how we're going to do that, right? Who's got what role? How are we going to communicate? What metrics are we going to follow? Like you just said, right? Are those important to me or not? Right? Because when you read different business books, you got to have metrics and you got to measure yourself. But what are those things? Maybe they're subjective instead of objective measures. So you got to have agreement on those.
It's funny, you mentioned BNI.
Yep.
Ivan
Meisner. Yes, there's the name.
Yes. And I was part of BNI, but I got to tell you, I'll go back to your disc. As a D, I fall into that 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Being in that 3%, BNI for me doesn't work because I don't do structure.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be, you got to have a box for this and metrics for this and this for this. I mean, I'm not bashing BNI.
Mm-hmm.
There's something for everybody. But for me, it was driving me nuts. Yeah. It was completely stressing me out.
Yeah. And imagine me on the other side, very structure oriented, looking for the rest of the team members to come in and be structured, right? To be present every week, to have referrals, to have done the training, to be thinking about all week long. And it was obvious that A, a whole bunch of people didn't show up, and B, when they showed up, they hadn't thought about it since the time they left a week ago. So what was the value of me being in that room with people that weren't focused on helping each other?
An expensive lesson.
Expensive lesson. I worked for $10 an hour, basically for 2 years. If I looked at the amount of referrals I got, the business I got, based upon all the time that I put in, it worked out about $10 an hour. And I said, yeah, I'm worth a lot more than minimum wage at this point in my life. So, but I made that decision right then. I committed for 2 years, and I said at the end of that, if I can't make this work, I'm gonna leave. And I told the president I'm stepping away. And of course, they spent all kinds of time trying to convince me to stay. You're the right person. You got the right perspective. It wasn't bullying. He didn't take it from a bullying perspective. It was more of an influencing perspective. And there is a difference. And I just said, no, I've made my decision. I'm going to move in a different direction.
Well,
and it's paid off for me.
Well, as a high D, you could imagine what my comment would be to them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I think that's probably the final inspiring aspect for me of a lesson is, face reality. Sometimes I love this quote, the way that someone does one thing is the way they do all things. Even though they may come back and say, oh, I apologize, I'm going to try to I'll change that. But if you see them on the next time do it exactly the same way, then you're probably pretty certain it's their habit, it's their discipline, it's what they really want to do. And they're kind of placating you. And if there's not a commitment to change, then it's probably, there should be no reason that you think that it's going to in the future. And I held on to that hope for too long. I've done a lot of introspection about it because I don't blame the other person. I blame me. I didn't spend enough time up front. I didn't clearly know what I wanted, right? I wasn't observing. I didn't listen to the mentors that I had around me that said, you got to be careful. So
it's funny. You mentioned all that. And I guess the one word that comes to mind for me is bioindividuality.
Oh, okay. In what way? Define that.
Way? I mean, no diet is going to work for everybody. No management style is going to work for everybody. I mean, you can read all of these management books, which is great. I love that people do self-learning, which is awesome. But I don't think your answer is going to be in one book. I think your answer might be a culmination of all those books for you to get what style of management that you actually are.
I think one or a couple will resonate more than the others, but it doesn't mean that you can't get something from all of them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why you think about, I think about writing a book. I think, well, there's so many leadership books out there. What more can I add? But the way I communicate things, the stories that I have will impact people differently than what it does with John Maxwell or Patrick Lencioni or Simon Sinek, right?
Well,
So we'll have a different audience. We'll have a different impact. So it probably is worth putting the book out.
well, I'll put it to you this way. You're on a highway. You've got McDonald's on one exit, a Burger King on another exit, Arby's on another exit.
Dairy Queen.
You've got all
Yep.
these burger joints.
Yep.
A burger's a burger, right?
Not necessarily, but okay.
Well, no, but why would you decide to pick one over the other?
All individual taste, right?
Yes, but everybody has different flavor profiles, different tastes, different wants, and different needs.
Yep.
I mean, why is Starbucks in business? People can go out and make coffee for 25 cents at their house. You boil water, you throw in a teaspoon of coffee, and off you go.
Yep.
But people go to Starbucks and they'll get their fancy drinks and spend the money.
Yep. Now spend $4 to $5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last time I was in Dunkin' Donuts, I always got a hot chocolate because it was $2.05. And the last time I went in about 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was $3.65. And it was funny how I said, well, that just crossed my line. I'm no longer interested in buying a hot chocolate for $3.65. I'll pay $2. So, but again, that's another taste piece, right? Preference, cost, value, taste, all those things. Yeah.
But I guess where I'm going with this is that you mentioned you wanted to write a book, and you said there are a bunch of management books out there. This is true.
Yep.
But there is only one of you, and no one thinks or writes or communicates like you. And that's what makes you unique.
That's right. Yep. That's what inspires me. And I keep coming back to the same kind of stories. I've got a book, kind of 8 chapters lined out. I keep coming back to the different aspects of it, building each one deeper. So I just need to get it all written down and move forward. But there's that fear piece, right? Of fear of missing out, fear of what's in it for me, fear of success. What is that what I want to be known for? So it's funny how all those things hold us back. Well, another lesson to inspire your audience, right? Is to go after it and not worry about everybody else.
I think of that as, it's what I call a rocking chair test.
A what?
A rocking chair test.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, God willing, I'm 90 or 100 years old. I'm sitting on my front porch in a rocking chair, wondering, how would my life be different if I did this or if I did that?
Yep.
And the bottom line is, you'll never know unless you try.
That's right.
If when you learned to walk, you fell down a few times, or a lot of times. When you learned to ride a bike, it was a painful experience. So
how many times did you go up over the front end of the front handlebars, right?
Oh yeah, I broke my arm. It was a painful experience. Yep. But if you don't learn from, you have to take the path and learn from those mistakes to get to where you want to go. Thomas Edison didn't fail 999 times to invent the light bulb. He just discovered 999 ways of not doing it.
Okay. Ways that didn't work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But he would not have got there if he didn't have all those.
That's correct.
Trials that didn't work. And we're going to have the same thing, right? We think, we create a path, right? We create a vision, we create a strategy, we create a path, and we take the first step and realize, well, what was I thinking? That's not what worked, right? But you wouldn't have known that if you hadn't taken the step. And now I say, okay, what will work? I mean, think about Steve Jobs and the iPhone. You know, how many different things did they try back in the lab before they figured it out? You know, just when they had a vision for the glass and a disappearing, I was reading about this in Michael Hyatt's book, Vision Driven Leader, you know, just the vision for the glass and a keyboard that disappeared so that you could use more of the screen for different actions, videos, etc. Yeah. They went through a lot of different ways to make that work before they finally got to the right point. Yep.
One of the greatest visionaries of our time.
Yeah. But people will tell you he's a terrible leader because he was I don't want to say a micromanager, but he was tough, man. He was hard. He was abusive. People have said those kind of things. I don't know if that's true. I'm just using what I've heard. But he was a visionary. He made things happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. And
yep.
So
there's a lot of criticism of Bezos because that organization that I've heard from people that I've helped get jobs there. It's a tough job. It's busy, man. It's productivity. But that's why they're in business. You know, they're there to serve that client and make money. And so as long as you know that going in, you know what you're going to get into.
this is true.
Yeah. I don't know if that were quiet quitting and some of that stuff. You know, quiet quitting gets a bad nomenclature because we take our glasses and we look at quiet quitting through our experiences. And quiet quitting to especially the baby boomers is like somebody who comes in and just does the minimum. I was talking to some millennials and they say, no, I'll bust my butt for the job that I was hired for. But you start asking me to do all these other things that are going to take me beyond my 8 hours, maybe 10 or 12 hours a day, and maybe 6 days a week. And I'm sacrificing my personal time. And if I don't see a value to it, why would I do that? Now, in the military, those were called additional duties. And sometimes we felt our additional duties took more time than our primary job. And it did take longer every day and sometimes on the weekend. But a lot of times that's how we met people. That's how we got in front of the commander, right? That's how we got the FaceTime and the right endorsements for promotion. And so there was a benefit to it, but it came at a cost.
Well, I think all that falls under the fine print, other duties as assigned. So read your contract carefully.
But what do they normally say, right? 5 or 10% duties, other duties as assigned, we can't foresee. And are you willing to do that? I joined Booz Allen and they said, you know, can you do some facility maintenance stuff too? And I said, well, I'll do a little. So I want to be hired for the environmental side and the emergency management side. That's where I want to spend my time. But yeah, 10%. Can we agree on 10%? The next thing I knew, I was doing 40 or 50%. So I needed to go back to the boss and kind of renegotiate what it is you want me to do. Am I willing to keep doing that? Because that facility maintenance wasn't the job, wasn't the career that energized me, not a bit. And so I think all of that helped me form that mantra, right? Help people find the career that energizes them and the life that fulfills them.
Well, I think everybody's experience, either bad or good, influences where you want to go.
Yep. Yeah. I want to make it clear, I'm not criticizing my leader because he was responding to the business that we were able to win to be able to keep people on board. But it was no longer, and I did it for a while, but it was no longer the long-term piece, right? Because I saw it growing beyond 50%, not going back to 10%. So it was where the organization was winning work and moving forward. And we weren't winning work in the area that I wanted to work in. So I either had to change companies to get with the winners or change my focus.
Or
again, that lesson learned, right? See what's happening, read the tea leaves. Think about Kodak when they were all into film and everything went digital. And they had a decision. They could have gone to digital. They didn't. They decided to stay with film and they went out of business. Right? So
Yeah.
somebody else.
which actually put me in business.
There you go. Yeah. There's always things that come good out of it, right?
Oh yeah, because now I take people's memories and pictures and video and convert it to a modern media, so you can actually watch it again.
That's right. Microsoft actually came up with the idea for the iPhone, but the CEO at the time said that's never gonna make it, never gonna work, not in the commercial world. And now it's made more money than that company ever made in anything.
And then you've got companies like BlackBerry.
Yeah, look at that one. Yeah, they held on to that physical keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything just.
Yeah. So I think the important part about paying attention to your stories is thinking into them. I think too often we just kind of exist through life and we say it is what it is, and we go forward and we don't pay attention to what did we learn in that job and how do I pay attention to that and utilize that in the future. Right? If I should have spent more time before I got in that relationship, understanding personalities and how we're going to communicate, how we're going to work together. Do we have the same vision, right? If I hook in with a partner to get married and they don't like to travel, but I do, am I going to start traveling by myself? Well, I've traveled by myself. It kind of sucks to be in a foreign country in a hotel by yourself, touring by yourself. You don't have things to share with. You don't have a person to sit down and enjoy a meal with. That's not as fun. Now, maybe some people like it. I don't know. It's up to them.
Oh, at that point, you can start a vlog. That's a whole nother business.
That's right. Right. But you got to think about the relationship that you have and what are you in sync? Are you like-minded? Right. So I think that's the big lesson for me is thinking through those things. And I want to inspire people that are listening to be thinking about that. Don't just jump in like I did and don't pay attention to it. Think about up front how you make it work. And it's not just, I'm going to figure it out along the way. At least not for me, not as an SC personality.
You actually remind me of something. I remember when I was a kid, I had such an imagination, and I had such big dreams of this and this. And I find as I get older, or as I got older, I don't remember what that was. I should have. Wish I had the hindsight to write all that down.
Yeah.
But I find society kind of puts us in a box and limits our imagination and takes us to a point where, oh, well, you really need to work for somebody. It's really not about the entrepreneur. And it's kind of sad because I can see the pros and cons in each situation. Because it all boils down. Goes back to that DISC assessment, like you were talking about. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in your corporate world and you've got to deal with your bosses and your peers and everybody and learn how to communicate with them, or you're an entrepreneur and you've got a bunch of clients from a DISC perspective, and you've got to. Basically, it all comes down to learning to play well with others.
That's right. That's right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the conversation and the opportunity to be here, talk through inspiring stories and how to take advantage of them, right? How to move in the right direction of your life. Because I'm just truly convinced that we were put here with certain skills and certain passions, certain interests to do certain things. And if we just kind of exist through life, don't listen to what happens, pay attention to what happens and how to meld in the future, we'll miss something.
I had someone on my podcast last week who said something very similar.
Okay.
And her words were, everybody's a genius. You just have to figure out where your talents and abilities lie.
Yeah. Yep. But it's funny how many people won't tell you what you think is a strength, which really isn't actually maybe a strength, or what you think is a weakness really isn't a weakness. So yeah, that's some of the 5 people around you, an advisory board, people who can tell you the truth, are willing to invest in you, be honest with you, and say, hey, Don, what you're doing probably isn't going to bear fruit. What you're not that good of a speaker, right? You're not that good of a coach. You're not that good of a football player. You're not that good of a baseball player, right? I was in high school running the hurdles because my older brother ran the hurdles. He won the city and won the conference. I never hardly got to varsity. Why did I continue to run the hurdles? Because I wanted to be like my brother. Why didn't the coach walk over to me and say, Don, this isn't in your future, dude. It's time to go focus on something else. but I don't know if he was afraid to hurt my feelings or what. But
After I graduated college, I fell into that percentile. Oh, what do you want to do with your life, Jeff? So I went and took one of those aptitude tests.
okay,
You know what it told me to do?
what's that?
It told me to be a farmer.
Oh, is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
For some reason, I couldn't picture myself as Farmer Jeff.
Yeah. Here's the funny part of that. And if we think about that a little bit differently, the act of farming is planting seeds and working toward the harvest. That doesn't have to be planting vegetables and fruit and all that kind of stuff in the soil. That could almost be like the digital piece that you're working, right? You're planting seeds and memories for people and helping them develop that legacy in their family. I don't know. I'm just thinking out of the box.
Oh yeah.
In some way, that's kind of being a farmer.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Right?
And
Spreading the gospel.
or a project manager.
Or a project manager. Yeah.
Yeah. And I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Nor did the people who evaluated the test think of it that way either.
Yeah. I think you're right. We had a gentleman we were working with. He was, I think he was an E7 in the Army. He was the expert on drones. He had written the policy for the Army on drones. And when he was getting out of the service, he talked to a recruiter and they did a skills analysis like that. And they said, the best thing we can see you doing is being an assistant manager at a Waffle House. He's like, I don't want to be in the Waffle House business. That's not me. So we ended up working with him and we got him focused and we got him a job at twice the pay, working with a contractor, working on drones back to the Army. And but he kind of came out of that. A, kind of ticked off, but B, kind of deflated a little bit. We reinflated him to what his capabilities were. And he was pretty happy for a while. Now he's actually running an Ace Hardware store. He got the entrepreneur bug, but it's not a Waffle House. It's an Ace Hardware store.
Well,
So
one of those Waffle Houses, you can be creative with the menu.
Yeah, maybe there was something there. Maybe the piece of the Waffle House was the entrepreneur piece of serving customers, right? Giving them a product and service, which is what he's doing in the Ace Hardware store. So again, thinking about that. Don't take it literal, take it figurative. And what does this mean? So anyway.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. I like to think outside the box.
That's always a good thing. How do people reach you?
Best way right now is through my LinkedIn, Don, middle initial L, and Gleason. And I'm the only one there. There's like 56 Donald Gleasons in some form. But if you put the middle initial L in there, you find me. And it says career transition coach. And I'm all about helping people think about, from a coach perspective, where they're at and where they want to be. And my particular piece that I'm really passionate about right now is that career transition. So you don't have to be focused in on career transition to come talk to me. I can help you get from here to there in a lot of different ways. But career transition, definitely want to talk to people. Because I think too often we're missing the boat. We're not going back to what we really want to do, which is kind of the piece of the story here, right? What do I really want to do? And that drives the resume, that drives your LinkedIn profile, that drives your interview, it drives your elevator pitch, drives all those pieces. But if you don't know what you want to do, then you don't know the stories to tell the company that looks to hire you about the value that you bring.
Yeah, but how do you figure out what you really want to do?
That's a process I take people through. Yep.
And I will put all your information in LinkedIn and
Okay.
Facebook and where else am I posting it? LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
Sounds good.
So people can find you because it's a great lesson and people definitely need your services.
Yeah.
So
It's time that 75% of the population that's disengaged at work finds a way to become engaged.
why am I not surprised?
On the statistic?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gallup survey has found that repeatedly over the years. Stays about in that same area. It's about a $1 trillion economic impact around the world every year. That's huge. And I'm not doing it. I don't do it from the economic aspect. I do it from the mental health aspect. How many divorces could be solved if people were energized at work? How many more kids, the problems could be solved if their parents were engaged at work? How many, you could just go on and on, right? How many nasty neighbors? You go over to some neighborhood and they almost bite your head off.
No, that
much is
sounds
that?
like my
Because
neighbor.
because they had a really pissy day, right? Because they did a job that they really didn't enjoy. So now
Oh,
they're not getting along with their neighbors.
oh,
So
my neighbor threatened to kill my dog. We don't speak.
yeah, yeah. But if they were engaged at work and they came home happy, whole things would change.
Oh, yeah. Now,
I've got
before I
I've
let
got
you
an I've
go,
got an idealistic view of the world.
I do have one other question.
Sure.
Have you ever looked at this from an epigenetic perspective?
Give me a little bit more detail.
After my parents died, I found a photograph in my grandfather's wallet, which took me back to a relative in 1870. I
Okay.
then did some genealogy, only to find out that everybody in my family was an entrepreneur, and I was the first person ever to actually work for somebody. Hence, being an entrepreneur is something I was born to be. The skill set was there. Have you ever looked at anything from that perspective?
I hadn't, but that's a good perspective. I like that. It's kind of like Tim Elmore's book, A New Kind of Diversity, is looking at the workforce from the 5 different generations and the difference between the generations in the workforce today. Baby boomers, we lived to work. We got into a job and we stayed there. The millennials and the Gen Y, much more about experiences, much more about the mission of the organization. And they hop around, right? They're looking for that experience and they move on. Are either of them right or wrong? I don't think they're right or wrong. It's just the way they are. So I think when you go back and look at personality assessments, you find out who you were, right? Just because all your family was entrepreneurs doesn't mean that you have to be an entrepreneur. But maybe there's a tendency there. It ought to be explored, right? And vice versa. So just because you've been I think about people who are 6 generations of rancher. Does that mean your son or daughter has to be a rancher?
No.
No.
But
find out what they want. But we try to force them into it.
But if you have 6 generations of being a ranger, maybe there's a skill set there that relates to something else that's entrepreneurial that would fit you.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be explored. I think that's the whole part of being in school is to get those experiences and try things out. People always ask, I always ask people, if you knew what you knew now, would you go back to high school and do it over again? And my answer is yes.
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't do it?
No.
Yeah. See, I want to do it, not to relive the same experiences, but to do things differently. I was so quiet and shy and I didn't get engaged in things. I went straight home after school and grabbed the bowl of ice cream.
And before we started this, I know we're running like way over time. I ended up with a double bachelor's in economics and finance, a double minor in computer science and math, a double master's in information technology management and telecommunications, and a degree in project management.
Wow.
I'm not going to say I wasted my education, but I guess in some form or way, I'm taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and incorporating it into my business, which kind of helps me with my podcast since I can touch base on a lot of different topics.
Yeah. And in your digital memorization stuff, right? You're talking
Yeah.
to a lot of different people with a lot of different experiences,
Oh yeah.
and you can relate better to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I deal with children's legacies, corporate legacies.
Yeah.
So it's important.
Good. All right. Well, that was a good question. I had not thought about it from an epigenetic perspective. I'll put some more thought into that and do some more research.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate that.
And if you
Yeah.
need an epigenetics expert, I can put you in touch with somebody.
Okay. Sounds good. I had a meeting with a gentleman through the lunch club last week, and I'd categorize the guy as a genius, but he's got various mental models that he puts everything through. And he's able to quickly make decisions and move forward and help his clients in business consulting. So, but I asked him where that came from. He's just like, I just learned it. I learned it all myself.
Everybody's got their own genius.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's an honor to be with you today. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. This was awesome. Learned a lot.
Same here. Always good. That's why I
Sure.
love this. I love the conversation piece because we learn so much. And,
Yeah. Well,
that's
I
what-
mean, give me a second. I'm Jeff Kay, founder of My Digital Memories. We preserve, protect, and organize your precious memories, which include your photographs, negatives, videotapes, home movies, records, and cassette tapes. These can be stored for today and future generations. After our parents died, my sister and I were cleaning out their home and we came across boxes of photos that we wanted and our kids wanted. I knew I had to digitize all these paper photographs, slides, and negatives so they could be shared with family and friends. In My Digital Memories, we take your photos and most types of media and digitize them. We're able to restore photographs and remove unwanted scratches or blemishes. We also digitize home movies. We deliver the end product into any type of storage imaginable, whether it's on a USB thumb drive, a DVD, or storage in the cloud. We make it easier for you to share your digital memories with family and friends. Are you aware your family memories, paper photographs, and other media were only designed to last a maximum of 20 years in a climate-controlled environment? People care about their memories, genealogy, and where they come from. My client Sally gave me countless VHS tapes and had no idea of the treasure she was about to find. She heard her father's voice for the first time. Her father died in Vietnam and she never met him. She broke down in tears and was extremely grateful. Let's always remember our pets, our furry friends who are loyal to the end. Please contact me to preserve what is most valuable in your life for today and future generations. You are never forgotten with My Digital Memories.